Pankaj Saxena. I'm the director of the Australian Institute of Advanced Studies. And
I'm David Warlow. I teach on the Screening Media course, both in Certificate 3 and also Diploma in Screening Media here in the college.
Australia is the best in terms of people. To be honest, they're more laid back and more accepting. As an international student, I think students worry about how they're going to fit into the culture. It's a great place. They get accepted far quicker than in other countries. They really are well mixed in. And I think for Filipinos in particular, the climate, especially where we are, which is in Brisbane, Queensland, it's far more convenient and similar to the Philippines.
So looking at it from a student's point of view, and overseas international students, comes down to three things. One is environment, one is culture, and the other is opportunities. The environment, as Pankaj said, is very similar to the Philippines. We're a little bit hotter and a little bit colder, I think, over the year than in the Philippines, but it's very, very similar. So it's not a big, they don't have to adapt very much to the climate. It's something that they're quite used to. The culture, as Pankaj says, is very laid back. Australian culture is very accepting. We have a diverse, multicultural culture anyway. If you are keen and friendly, you will fit in very well. And that's what we find with most of our Philippine students. They have no trouble. You smile at someone, they will smile back. There's no social barriers to integrating into Australian culture. If you are friendly to people, they're friendly back. And finally, opportunities. In this country, we have opportunities are wide open for students. There is so many more opportunities and potential opportunities for people to grow and move into new areas and new spaces, new careers, new directions. And there aren't the restrictions, either social restrictions or cultural restrictions that there are in some other countries. In Australia, if you want to do it and you're willing to work hard to do it, you can do it. So that's what I would say, environment, culture, and opportunities.
What place would you recommend to students studying?
There are so many beautiful places, and it depends what is interesting to that person. We also have slightly different environments in terms from the very north of Queensland is very tropical, and the very south in Tasmania can be quite cold and you get snow and that sort of thing. So there's a great variety in Australia, even just on the eastern seaboard.
What's your first impression of Filipino students in your school?
They're very pleasant, they're very polite, they're very shy. And it takes a little bit of time for them to feel comfortable enough to let their personalities come out. Once that happens, we're super, super positive, friendly, very, very likable students.
In terms of studies-wise, they're excellent. I mean, it's a pleasure teaching them. Every teacher says it's great to have a class of students who are genuinely keen to learn, and you can see in their that they're here to make a new future for themselves.
What makes your school stand out?
The fact that we approach our studies in a practical nature, hands-on, face-to-face. We're standing over the student's shoulder, making sure that they can do the work to the level that needs to be done. We shy away from the online stuff. A lot of Australian institutions go online and have shifted all of their courses online. We don't feel that gives the best results, and our primary focus is the student and their capability, because our job is to make them job ready by the end of their course. Practical thing, and the fact that we demand a high level of functionality from our students. We don't tick and flick. We don't just pass them just because they enrolled. They have to demonstrate that they are capable and competent across the board with everything that they do. And if they don't, they fail. We have standards that we enforce.
I'd like to add a little bit more to that. The engineering course. At this point, absolutely 100% success rate in my students getting jobs, which I personally and staff do. I've driven 4,000 kilometers in 10 days looking for all engineering companies. Every single student is being taken up by these companies who are more than happy to sponsor them once their post-study visa ends. So every single student has got that. Absolutely no other college can actually say that.
Give 3 tips you would give to a new student in your school.
One is to remember that when they come to this country to study, their number one priority is study. It's not to work, it's not to play, and there are a lot of distractions. Obviously when you come here and you have to eat and you have to pay rent, and so we understand fully that it is a priority for them. But not letting the work or the play get in the way of the study, because that's the reason they're here. The second thing is just to pay attention and learn as much as you can about the culture in this country, as much about interacting with people. And particularly for Filipino students, I would say start to come out of your comfort zone, in the sense that start to do different things and do, we have conversation with some Filipino students about the different cultures. We were at the beach at one of these trips that we went, and they were talking about what it's like to go to the beach in the Philippines and what it's like here and the different type of thing. And they were talking about different influences, obviously the American influence and other things that is slightly changing Filipino culture. When they come here, they should be open, look at how other people do, and don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone, because that's where the really exciting stuff happens. So that would be my 3 things.
What are the 3 popular programs international students take in your school?
Our flagship course is the engineering, the Advanced Diploma of Engineering. Australians aren't doing engineering, so there's a big demand for our students. The other courses that we do, and let me go through very quickly with the ones that are in demand from Philippines. We've got the aged care. We do a Certificate 3 and a Certificate 4 in aged care and individual support. Now, the students we get from Philippines for that are qualified RNs. They're already RNs with 2 or 3 years experience of working as an RN in Philippines. The idea with that course is they come to Australia, they do these Cert 3 courses because one, there's jobs in that area, and they improve their language, they improve their whole skills, social skills to meet the Australian side. And then they do a course, which is the OSCE course, where they become RNs in Australia. They become registered nurses, and that's a pathway. I mean, that's getting to the pathway. We've got the hospitality courses as well, the commercial cookery, and then the hospitality diploma. And in that one, because there's pathways, most international students are looking for courses that have pathways.
Can students work part-time while studying in your school?
Yes. At the moment, generally, international students are allowed to work 20 hours a week. Minimum pay in Australia is around $20 an hour, per hour. So they are, at the moment, because we've got a shortage in the hospitality and the aged care, that limit has been lifted. They can do as many hours as they can. Engineering and other courses is still tied to 20 hours a week.
What should students keep in mind while having their part-time jobs?
Number 1 is the focus on college. So what tends to happen, of course, is that you get a job and you're earning some money, and this is great, and yay. And sometimes we have students that kind of forget the reason that they're here is to study. So it is a balancing act. Obviously, you need to live, you need to eat, you need to pay your rent and your electricity and stuff. But that balancing between remembering that you are here to do your course and that's what's going to give you your future, not the part-time job that you're doing while you're studying. So that is a balancing act for a lot of students, and it's something they have to be aware of. But you can't just ignore college and say, I'm just going to work all the time. You can't do that, obviously.
And that brings me to one point that we may forget about. My advice to any international student coming to Australia, try and get a driver's license from Philippines first. A lot of jobs want you to have a car, and most students end up buying cars. But the license is very expensive. So my suggestion is try and get a driver's license from Philippines. It opens up so many other doors for job-wise.
How much can a working student earn?
They do the 20 hours, around 400 now per week. However, that's the minimum wage. We have students who are earning $28 an hour. We have other students who are earning up to $30 an hour, depending on the job. But the minimum is supposed to be 20. So
roughly translates to about 450 Australian dollars per week.
How can students get a full-time job after completing their program?
We do everything we can to help. And one of the things we also encourage them to go out and try and talk. When you're out, even in your part-time jobs, talk to everybody. That I'm doing engineering, I'm doing this, and do you know anybody? And that's something that we're trying to enforce that work in. So yeah, in that sense, we do as much as we can to help.
How can a student earn their postgraduate work permit?
Depending on the course. Now, the advanced diploma of the engineering one, it's there, full stop. They're entitled to it. Anybody doing the diploma is entitled to get that. But one of the advantages we have with the engineering one is we get not only a postgraduate visa, but our course we've got assessed, because we changed it to be classified in the area where civil and structural drafting, which gives them a pathway. It's not just post-study visa and it ends. There, on then onwards, the companies are more than happy to sponsor them on, and all that working experience counts towards them. So yeah, that's in terms of post-study visas. If you've done a diploma, we've basically got pathways. In terms of visa-wise, we've got one migration agent here. She's actually Filipino, and so she does a lot of work with our students for their post-study visas. Very strong in that area, so that so students have access to her, so they're working in that way. One of the other things we didn't mention was all our courses. If a student wants to go on to further studies, engineering gives our students 1.5 year credit towards a bachelor's degree, which is quite huge. Other courses like creative industries, you get 1 year credit towards a bachelor course as well.
What fun activities can international students explore?
Okay, we do lots of things here. We have an annual trip where we take the students to an island nearby, Stradbroke Island, film nights. Because the students come in, we've got popcorn machines, all of that. We have several barbecues during the year. We don't charge for any of these barbecues and things. In fact,
that's just within the college. These are things that we like to get the students doing. But I mean, one of the considerations is Australia it's a big place, huge.